Welcome to the Object of the Game. I'm Maureen Kyle with Coach Chuck Kyle, and today we are going to have a fantastic guest. I can't wait for all these stories to unfold, but I want to start out with Dad. I want to have the story of how you guys reconnected. Let's introduce Dave, but also the story of how you've met and reconnected is just wild to me.
Yes. Okay. 50 years went by. I'm just saying to preface this, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But we're in Italy, Amalfi Coast kind of area, whatever.
Yeah.
Just got there. I just go down to the pool. I happen to put a St. Ignatius t-shirt over my swim stuff. I walk down, I'm walking along, and gentleman looks at me and goes, Coach Kyle. Hi. Dave Ford. And now I'm going, last time I saw Dave Ford was like 50 years ago. He was this young, because when you're the new teacher, I'm just saying kid because I was. I did the books in the basketball game. I taped the ankles. You do those jobs, right? So I'm doing the books for the Lincoln West St. Ignatius basketball game. So here he is. He's all scholastic, all state basketball, and needless to say, baseball. So that Dave Ford, all right, check you off. You know what it is,
Yeah.
And then 50 years later.
Yeah.
It was pretty amazing. We had just gotten, this was the second part of our trip, and I think the second part of Chuck's trip and your mom's.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and I'm out of the corner of my eye, I see somebody walking to my right with the shirt on, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Who is wearing a St. Ignatius football shirt in Sorrento, Italy? And
That's right.
so we ended up reconnecting. We went to dinner a few times, and we have since gone to dinner. And we went to dinner the other night, which I'm finally recovered. We ate so much in Little Italy, but it was fun. We had a great time, and I really enjoy your mom and dad's company.
This is going to... He's got a great story to tell.
I know.
It's just for kids, who have dreams of what could happen.
Yeah.
Who knows?
That was my dream.
But all the details that are involved with
Right.
it.
Right.
This will be good.
Dave, I'm so glad you're here with us. So first of all, thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
And it's so funny because this is so my parents and my dad. I mean, this is so like, first of all, I remember as a kid, like where were we? Like in DC, and we open an elevator. I forget where we were. Or like an elevator opens and somebody's like, Coach Kyle, and there was like some Ignatius grad, So it's funny. We always have a joke too in news where it's like there's always a Cleveland connection, no matter where you go. Cleveland connection. Like, and you're on a tour group. You're going to find somebody from down the street.
He's bigger than Cleveland in the U.S. Now he's branching out to the world.
Gosh. Well, even just, and I traveled to Banff, Canada in September, and on our, raft boat was somebody from Chagrin Falls. It's just like anywhere you go, like Northeast Ohio, world. We're all connected. Right. But then also when I would hear about you and your wife and they'd be saying, we're going out to dinner, I never heard the story of your baseball career. I don't know. It was always like, we're going out to dinner with the Fords. And I'm like, oh, okay, sounds great. Glad you made some friends. Sure. And then when we were doing the show, he's like, well, we need to have Dave on. So that's I get little tidbits here and there. But then as I've been hearing your story, I'm just so excited to hear firsthand what you went through, how it's changed over the past couple decades. I mean, yes. And then what I love too is how you've been involved with rec sports.
Sure.
And I've gotten a lot of feedback on this show about, and my dad talks about it all the time, how important rec sports still are for kids today.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when children are third, fourth, fifth grade, whether they're playing Little League or basketball, they need to be involved, in a team sport activity. And, after it starts to kind of play out after 7th, 8th, 9th grade, are they can continue? Can they play at a St. Ignatius level? Can they play in high school, wherever? But when they're 8, 9, 10, there's so much to be learned. And it's really a beautiful thing to see kids who are, maybe not so talented, but they're part of a team, whatever the sport is. So recreation is very important and always will be. Now, and we talked about this before we went on the air, how it's changed quite a bit, and partly not for the best. And so hopefully rec centers, programs, leagues can get a hold of that, because this is not professional sports at 10 years old, and
It's a learning.
yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Right.
So
And the coaches are teachers, the parents are teachers. That's what they
Right,
kinda,
right.
It gets muddled a bit there.
Yeah. And this is coming from two men who have had professions in sports. And I think it means a lot coming from a former Major League Baseball player when you hear how important these levels are and what's important to parents and what's important to coaches and kids. So we'll go into all of that, and we're going to hear some stories. But it's just so fun to have you here and hear about this. Like, do you find yourself, are you always like walking around telling a story, or do you keep like
no, I don't really talk about it too much.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, no,
I bet
and
people
I don't.
have been running into you and would never know about your
Well, certainly my
past
wife.
history.
She's not really a sports person, so we don't talk too much about
I
it.
wonder why your mom and they get along. It's
Right.
Right.
What
Right.
are they doing?
Right.
So-
Yeah. So we've probably run into each other a million times,
Right,
and I've never
right.
known the history of your
Sure.
time in Major League Baseball. So
Right.
we'll talk about it. Why don't we take a quick break now so that we can get into all of the fun stories with Dave Ford when we come back. Welcome back to The Object of the Game. Our guest today is Dave Ford, who played in the major leagues and grew up here in Cleveland, has such a great story. Dad, you were saying you've known him since high school.
Yes, I was the young faculty member coach, so I'm doing the books at basketball games. I'm taping ankles. I'm doing all those.
Yeah.
Go do it, kid.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And
Yeah.
Right.
But that was
So
basketball.
That I would be
Yeah.
at the table, it's the scorer's table, and I can remember because it was a big game.
Right.
It was-
Yeah.
He was on the championship team of the West Senate, and Ignatius is playing. I remember this guy scoring 20-some points a game, checking in, Dave Ford checking in. Okay, Dave, okay, good.
Yeah.
And I was that guy, right?
Yeah.
And but that was, again, 50 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Right,
And
yeah.
followed his career
Quick
from
50.
there. Amazing. Yeah, it was quick. Follow his career as things
Yeah.
have happened for him.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
So that was basketball.
Yes.
What sports did you play when you were growing
I
up?
was basketball, baseball, which I love basketball more. I just love the excitement of it. I love the challenge. I was a better baseball pitcher at the time, but basketball, to me, the excitement and energy, it's great when you're on the mound but like Little League or whatever, you're playing another position. It's not as much action as a basketball game for me. But so I'll tell you a little bit. I grew up in Cleveland, West 25th and Marvin, and drove my bike and went down to Brookside Park and played, as you could ride your bike then, and your parents weren't, 9, 10, 11. You were gone all day. And
Until dark.
until
they're
dark.
somewhere.
So that's where I learned how to play, and went to Blessed Sacrament Church. That's where I grew up. I had a coach, Mr. Fricky, I remember his name, 7th, 8th grade, would not let me pitch in the 7th and 8th grade during CYO
Oh, no
games.
way.
And everyone, why won't you let Dave pitch? He goes, because when Dave pitches, the other team doesn't score any runs, and the games are not competitive, so we want competitive games. So Dave is going to play shortstop. And so my grade school classmates have reminded me of this. I forgot about that I didn't pitch. And
They had a
well, the coach, it was the
rule or
coach's
something?
rule. The
Okay,
coach, it was the coach's rule.
'Cause they-
My coach who wouldn't let me
There's
pitch.
some rules that are like,
Right.
Yeah.
score,
Right.
Yeah.
So,
runs, you got to.
yeah. Well,
I don't know if you remember, Dad, but my softball team was on the receiving end of,
Yes.
of
Yeah.
that mercy rule. Yes, we were always getting the mercy.
rule.
the mercy rule, right. So, yeah, anyway, so I progressed, and I went to Padua for a year, and then I transferred to Lincoln West, which was a new school by my house. So, and just sharing a story, when I was playing my junior and senior year, I was having a lot of scouts come to the games, and I played competitive ball in the summer. We had excellent baseball growing up in Cleveland in the 70s in Connie Mack. My one summer team had Chris Bando, Major Leaguer, Dale Mahorsick, Major League, Paul Simo was AAA. Our center fielder was Wade Manning, who ended up playing in the NFL. So and myself. So we had all these guys on one team when we were 16, 17-year-old kids. And so I got drafted out of high school.
Wait,
you gotta tell that story.
Not so bad. Oh, I just got drafted. Okay.
This is so different. This is different than when I was hearing little tidbits. I want to hear it from you because this is not what happens today at all.
Oh, yeah.
So you and you were saying you had scouts coming. Like, what was that like to be playing and you have scouts sitting there watching you? Was that
well, it
typical?
was interesting because if you think about Tremont and Clark Field, which is by the steel mills, air quality was awful at the time because the steel mills were in full bore in the 70s, and we had it'd be cold at this time of the year. You're getting ready to start playing baseball here shortly, and we know what it's like in Northeast Ohio on March 30th or so. And so there might be 20 people at the game, and 10 or 12 of them might be scouts behind the backstop watching. So I kind of got used to it after a while and tuned them out, and I was looking at the batter and the catcher and what I needed to do. But it was, it was a little different at first.
And so then talk about you're getting drafted. So the scouts came.
Yes.
Then.
So
happened?
My senior year of high school, school was almost over. I was in English class and the day of the draft, and the draft started at noon. And we had heard that I was going to get drafted high. We had no idea what round, first, second, third, fourth, but we had heard that it was going to be high, which was very unusual for somebody in this area of baseball, and whether me or anybody, because most of the players that are drafted, whether it be high school or college, are coming out of warm weather states, California, Florida, Texas, wherever, where they can play pretty much year round. So the phone rang in my English class, Miss McDonough, I remember. I got a B, and I was very happy with my B. It was a very challenging class. And the phone rang, and everybody was like, well, that's got to be for Dave. And so slowly she got up and walked over to the phone and took the call and said, okay, and slowly walked back to her desk and did not say a word. Now, could have been 10, 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Felt like minutes.
Yeah.
And we're all looking, and everybody's looking, and finally she looked up and she said, Mr. Ford, your services are wanted at the office. And that's all she said. And so I walked out and went down the hallway. Everybody was congratulating me, and I still had no idea what had happened. Yeah. And they handed me a phone, and they go, how does it feel? And I said, how does what feel? I don't know what happened. And then that's when it was a writer from the press or the Plain Dealer and told me that I was drafted by the Orioles in the first round. So
first round. I don't know. I can't recall any other greater Cleveland young man being drafted in the first round. I know there's been
other people
drafted.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Round,
yeah, I don't think so. Well, again,
the
scouts weren't coming up here. Yeah, right. I'm the guy.
That's why
well, hopefully there'll be another.
That's why I was laughing. It's like you're this guy walking around Heinen's and nobody knows that this is who this is.
Just going to buy some milk.
History of Cleveland.
Here, walking history.
Yes.
Well,
yeah.
A little bit more of the story.
Right.
Yeah, this is so good. All right, after the break, you have to hear about what that was like to be drafted in the first round. What year was that?
75.
75.
Yes.
Very different from today. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Object of the Game. Our guest today is Dave Ford. If you're just joining us, we left on a cliffhanger. He had just been drafted first round for Major League Baseball, drafted to the Orioles, 1975. Not what people would expect, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're excited. I mean, obviously very excited. Sure. First round pick. We didn't expect that. It was, quite an honor. And so we've got euphoria, and they come to my house with my mom and dad. My dad was a bus driver for CTS. My mom was a seamstress. My brother, who was still in the house, just graduated from Cleveland State. He was going for his master's in accounting. So that's my representation to negotiate my signing bonus with the Orioles. And an 18-year-old kid who thinks he knows a lot and all that. Yeah. But at any rate, so we get through the formalities, and we had heard that the first pick, and I was lower in the first round, first guy was going to get about $100,000. So I doing the math and I'm thinking, well, I got to be worth $50,000 to $60,000. So we get through the formalities, and the Orioles make their offer. And I looked looked around at my mom and dad, and I looked at my brother, and I said, nobody's saying anything. And I said, excuse me, can you say that again? And the way it works is you have a signing bonus as well as your monthly salary. So this was negotiating for the signing bonus.
Okay.
And nobody's saying it.
You can get the number.
Yeah. So I will. But then I said, this is not what we expected. And they told me the number, and they said 12.5. And I went, 12.5, 12. And I couldn't fathom it. And so then again, I looked for the adults in the room. No one was helping. So at that point, I looked at them and I said, I think you guys are going to have to leave. And then it got really quiet, like a funeral type setting. And now we went from really euphoria to like, wow, what just happened here? So long story short, we knew someone at IMG. I went down. International Management Group is downtown. Ed Keating was the agent, big time agent. Had a meeting with him. He agreed. I was the first team sport player that they took on as a client and represented in this process. And he asked me, how long do I want to wait? And I said, well, I think I'm worth this. And he said, that's fine. He goes, it might take a couple weeks. And it did. And it all worked out. And so, but, right away as an 18-year-old, you're seeing how the business aspect of baseball works. It is glory at times, but then you have another side of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. And so you were just telling us about how that salary wasn't even really making ends meet.
Well, yes. And so the signing bonus, and you think you have all this money and you're going to get some $1,000 when you have taxes taken out, then you have the agent's fee taken out. And then I just said, hey, I want to buy a Lincoln Continental. And they go, well, I don't know about that. And they go, how about this Camaro over here? And I said, well, that'd be great, because I was driving my dad's 64 Buick Electra that I bought for him for $200, and he made me pay him. And I said, that would be great, a new car. And so I got a Camaro, and I drove to Bluefield, West Virginia to start my minor league career in rookie ball. And so in getting to the monthly salary, I was paid $500 a month salary to live on. And that is, you paid clubhouse dues, you paid rent, you bought food, you paid your bills. And the first couple of years in the minor leagues, I paid to play, basically, because my salary wasn't going to pay my apartment rent or anything like that. So. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Not like that anymore.
Not like that. No, totally different. You're not sitting in English class getting your teacher to say, hey, go to the office. You're drafted. Just that alone.
Right.
Then what was it like in the minors then at that time? Like, what was it like playing?
Well, you leave and you're a good player in high school, and you get there and you realize that there is a lot of talent out there. You have players coming from Latin American countries. You have college players that are there. You have guys that maybe are returning from the previous year that haven't moved up. Baltimore was a very strong organization at the time. So in any organization now, even Cleveland or any team, if they're really strong at the major league level, there's not a lot of movement in the minor league. So AAA, AA guys are not moving up. And most clubs have 2 A-ball teams. Mm-hmm. So when you have to funnel into 1 AA team, guys are going to get cut and released, and there's not a lot of movement, especially if you're very strong at the major league level. Obviously, if somebody's a player, they're going to move them up and so on. So it's very competitive business, I would say.
Again, a little baseball history now. We're talking about the Baltimore Orioles at that time. They had
very strong.
Amazing.
Yes, very strong. I think if I would have been drafted by somebody else at the time, I would have moved up quicker and maybe stayed longer. But we were, at the time, during my career in Baltimore, we had 3 Cy Young Award winners on the staff. Uh-huh. And so, I learned a lot from them, and I've got some good stories that we can get to as we move along, and especially my first appearance in spring training, when my first batter that I faced was Brooks Robinson.
Oh my gosh, just tell that story now as we're going.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Checking the time here.
Sure.
Yeah, so
we're good.
Tell it. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Okay, so I'm 19 years old, and I'm on fire. I'm just so jazzed to throw batting practice for the first time as a young kid in big league spring training, and Brooks Robinson, Hall of Famer, third baseman, is the first guy I'm going to face. Now, I'm a control pitcher, and so I can throw the ball pretty much where I want most of the time. And So I look in, and he's there. And in big league spring training, you have a catcher there, and he's in there, and he has the little shortened helmet that he always wore, and I'm ready to go. And now I am a little too excited, and I'm throwing a little harder than you would generally for batting practice, but I'm a young kid.
Adrenaline is flowing.
Adrenaline is flowing.
Yeah.
And my first pitch, I almost hit him in the head. And I went and I looked, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what just happened? It's okay. Just gather yourself. And so I get on the mound. I almost hit him again. 2 pitches. I've almost hit a Hall of Famer. And I'm a little timid about throwing the first pitch. And so I'm within a 10 to 15 second stretch. I'm trying to regroup. I'm trying to breathe and go, what is just happening? How are we going to get out of this? I don't know who is in my body right now. I don't know what's going on. So I hear a voice coming from the batting cage, and someone is yelling, "Rookie, rookie!" And I'm looking down. I look up, and it's Brooks, and he's got both hands up, and he's going, "Rookie, relax." And I went, "Okay, Brooks." So I got back up on the mound, and I threw a pitch and another ball, but I didn't hit him. And then I got back into a groove. And so that tells you what kind of guy Brooks Robinson was. A Hall of Famer. He was a better guy, a better person than he was a player, which is amazing.
A lot to say.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
and he really was. And
Yeah.
and he was a great announcer after his career, and he always tried to protect players. He was a player's announcer, and he was just a quality guy. And when he turned 80, and he's since passed away, but when he turned 80, I called him and I said, "Brooks, I got to tell you a story if you remember." And I shared that story again. And he goes, "I remember." He goes, "You're a little excited. You're a young guy." And I said,
Yeah.
"Yeah, Brooks."
Yeah.
So it's a great story.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
We're going to hear more about Dave Ford's experience in the major leagues when we come back. Welcome back to The Object of the Game. We are talking with Dave Ford. You might recognize the name. He played for the Baltimore Orioles. And Dave's just been living here in Cleveland with us,
Yeah.
just walking around with all
Right.
these amazing stories. Also grew up in Cleveland. And you were just talking about playing for majors. So I want to hear these stories about coming back to when you're playing with the
Sure.
Baltimore Orioles and you
Yeah.
get to come home to play, because I think every kid dreams about if they
That'd
make
be
it to the big league.
Yeah.
amazing. How could you sleep at night?
Right.
With that?
Right.
Yeah.
I can still remember running in the outfield, and pitchers would run every day the first time. And I looked at the stadium, and I've been coming to the stadium, the old stadium, since I was a kid. And now here I'm on the field. So it was pretty amazing. But one quick story about coming into town my second year in the big leagues and come to Cleveland. The team wasn't strong at that time, and the stadium was huge, and we were allotted so many tickets. So I would leave 50, 60 tickets for family and friends to come to the game. And so I hadn't pitched in a while, and our pitching staff was strong, and our starters were going long into the game, so I wouldn't get in. I was a middle reliever, so I was not pitching. And so I hadn't pitched in a week or 10 days. And so my sister calls me as second day in town and said, "I just made a call to your coach, and that you're gonna get in the game tonight." And I thought it was a joke, and
Yeah.
and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "No, I just called your coach." I said, "You called my coach? What are you talking about?" "Yeah, I called Earl Weaver at the hotel, my Hall of Fame manager." I go, "No, you did not do that." She said, "Yeah, I did. I talked to him." I said, "You called him at the hotel. He took your call, and you told him that you were my sister and that you wanted your brother to pitch. Is that right?" She said, "Yes." I go, "No." And so I go to the park that night, and I walk by his office, and I know what's going to happen, and I hear a voice, and he yells my name, "Ford!" And so I walk in, and I go, "Yes, Earl." What? He goes, "I got a phone call today," and I said, "Yeah, really? Who called you, Earl?" And act like I don't have no idea what had just happened hours ago, and he said, "Your sister called me and wanted me to pitch you tonight in the game," and I said, "Really?" And I act shocked. And I said, "Well," he goes, "You ready?" And now, is this a trick
Yeah.
question? I haven't pitched in 10 days. Am I ready? Yes. And this is my hometown. "Yes, Earl, I'm ready." He said, "Okay, be ready." And so I did get in the game that night, and I pitched well in Cleveland. But to back up a little, as I was leaving the office, he goes, "Wait a minute, one more thing." I said, "Yes, Earl?" He goes, "Never, ever, ever have her call me again." I said, "Yes, Earl, I will not."
But it worked.
It did work.
worked.
Yes, it did.
She'll tell that story.
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah.
So that was Municipal Stadium.
That
then?
was Municipal Stadium. So I pitched in Cleveland a few times when I came into town, which was great. And, I tried not to look up at when I was walking on the duck because the people would be above my friends and whatever classmate. Hey, wait, and you're trying to focus, and I wasn't the guy to be waving in the stands at people or anything. So,
but that's amazing.
Yeah, it was fun.
All of your close people.
Yeah, it was
watching.
Especially my mom and dad. To have my mom and dad there at the rail or something, and go over and talk to them and see them, and I could see how happy and proud they were, and it was. I was happy to see them there. It was awesome. So. Yeah.
So, is that better than World Series? Because you were in a World Series.
Well, yeah, I didn't pitch yet, but we lost to Pittsburgh in '79, and I mean, you remember certain things. I remember my first big league game. I remember coming to Cleveland, and I remember the guys. I remember the guys on the team, and which I still have friends from that era. What I see, and I've been fortunate. I've done Oriole camps. Over the years in Florida, we've done fantasy camps, so I get to like a reunion with the guys. I do clinics for Major League Baseball, and I do pitching lessons as well now. So, but that time frame, some of those things, just like some of your games, you remember. Even they might have been 30, 40 years ago. They are fresh just like it just happened. So now I can't tell you what I did a week ago at times, but I do remember a game that I pitched and what pitch he hit or he didn't hit. But at any rate.
What was it like to be sitting there? I know you said you didn't pitch, but like you're part of a World Series team.
Oh, it was great. I mean, every game is important. And I remember closing out the last game in Baltimore in the regular season before the playoffs started in '79. And just the crowd was so, I was having a hard time. The roar was coming in. I'm thinking this is for me, it wasn't meaningless. Every time I pitched, it was a big deal for me. But the crowd was so into every pitch at the end of the last regular season game that had no bearing on the playoffs that I was excited. I mean, it was
back then. Now also, but back then, regular season is regular season. But when the playoffs begin, the television.
Oh, yeah.
All over.
Yes.
Everybody.
Yes.
I remember, they would introduce each guy.
Right.
I remember watching go day for it.
Yeah. I was very exciting.
It was
yeah.
And you're in the back of your mind, you're going, okay, how many million of people are watching this
right
now?
Right.
This isn't just, another game.
Yeah.
Right. No,
so wait, Dad, you were sitting there watching TV and you're like, I remember.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And there is this young guy.
Right. Yeah. No.
And then
no, it was very exciting.
Coast.
Now we're in the Amalfi
That's
Coast.
the last time I saw him before the Amalfi Coast.
Right. Oh, that's good.
So as you're looking back on that time and then comparing it to what you're watching unfold today with major leagues, what do you think? I mean, maybe there's a little bit of nostalgia there, but what do you think comparing back then to today? What are we missing? Is there an element of
I don't know. I mean, obviously there's a lot of money in the game now. There's a lot of money, and we had a lot of fun. We did a lot of things in Baltimore. Guys lived near each other. We would get together on off days. I don't know if that's happening now. I have no idea, but I've had friends that have stayed in the game as coaches and since retired. And we had a great amount of respect for coaches and everything during the course of the game. And I think that mirrors society a little bit, that we've lost a little bit of respect in every level, whether it be at the major leagues or high school level or in everyday society. We talked a little bit about youth sports and coaching, which we can get into, but we're missing a little bit.
Yeah, but here we are. March 18, we're at right now. And right now, even today, can you hear the camp right now? There's a bunch of pictures.
Oh, yeah.
Going, am I making it or not?
Right. So
at
this time of the year, March 18th, I believe, what's happening in the next 10 days. At any level, whether it be major league or minor leagues, you don't want somebody touching you on the shoulder going, somebody needs to talk to you right now. That's not a good thing.
Yeah.
There are going to be a lot of guys that either lose jobs or get shipped to the minor leagues or wherever. And so this is a very difficult time. 75, 80% of every team right now has their roster set, but there might be 5 to 8 guys where there are 20 guys going for those spots. So
Wow.
at every level,
Every team.
in almost any sport, but baseball, it's
Yeah,
it's
but right now.
Especially,
yes,
and I think especially in pitching.
yes,
It
yeah,
just seems to me as a guy looking in. I mean,
yes,
I don't care. Look at the Guardians. Look at anyone.
right,
There's a whole group right there that you
Right.
go in and their Guardians bullpen's pretty good.
very solid.
How do you
Yes,
break into that?
right, right.
There's who's going to be the starters?
Yes,
Right.
And it's
excellent.
just the
For
intensity.
sure. Every spring training outing, whether you pitch an inning, 2 innings, 3 innings, and you can go 3 innings and give up one hit or 2 hits, no runs, that's big. And so these are all big, especially young guys, because they're all looking for a start. They're looking for an opening, and there are openings. It's just you have to create it. You got to be healthy, and you got to be on top of your game at the time when this happens, and hope that they think you're the guy. So,
Wow, a lot
so-
on the line. I know it's good to get that perspective, especially now as we're watching them at spring training.
Yeah, it's getting close.
Yeah,
This time period, every spring has to
right.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
a lot on the line.
ice
Wait-
that arm. Make
Right.
sure-
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Can't
Right.
be sore.
Gotta stay
No.
healthy.
I
I
got
do want to
either.
get into your experience with youth sports, and we'll get into that. We talk about that a lot on this show,
Sure.
so we're going to go into that when we come
Right.
back. Welcome back. We are talking with Dave Ford, former Major League Baseball pitcher, and then giving back to local youth sports, which is just incredible
Yeah.
to me. We talked about it a little bit at the beginning of this episode, but if you missed it, when you were out of Major League Baseball, tell me, how did you? Well, you got injured. Why don't we wrap
I
it
got
up
hurt.
with
Yeah,
that
I got
too?
hurt. My second, third year in the big leagues, I got hurt. Had a shoulder problem. I ended up having a nerve problem in my shoulder that came in the back of my shoulder, which hurt my career. I got healthy, but I never quite got back. I ended up being back in the minor leagues in AAA. And I spent my last year in my career in Mexico, playing in Mexico, in Monterrey. So typically, if you're playing in Mexico in the summer, your career is not heading in the right direction. So at that point,
Way to put it.
I realized that I better start thinking about another career. So, and one thing about Mexico, the people are great, and you see the country, and they have so many problems and so much poverty down there, and people are in such dire need in some areas that I'm like, I can't feel sorry for myself.
Mhm.
I mean, look at how these people are living. So it was a good eye-opening for me to say, time to move on. I've had a good career. And so, yes, the transition, I ended up getting a job with the city of Rocky River. And prior to that, I was hustling, working 3 jobs, and I was in North Olmsted, and someone asked me to come over and work with the North Olmsted baseball team. And to help, basically. Nobody was going to pay me anything. And while I was working 3 jobs, and reluctantly I said, okay, I'll go over. And I did that a few times. But what had happened is the AD said, why don't you go to Rocky River? The director there is a former baseball player in college.
Mhm.
And so I did. And so a good thing of helping out ended up leading to a 32, 33-year career
Wow.
with the city of Rocky
Opens up
River.
windows.
Yeah.
So a good deed sometimes, even though I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm working 3 jobs, I'm hustling. Now I'm going to go give a few hours here a couple times. But it's sometimes we have to push ourselves for that. And so I was very grateful and still am. I had a great run in Rocky River. It was a great city.
Yeah.
But one quick story about baseball in the city of Rocky River. So I would have an adult community group that was on Detroit Road, mentally handicapped, and they would come in. I'd give them gym time, and they'd come in and shoot. And one year they said, would you please come over and talk to us at this time of the year? Baseball is going to start. And I said, sure. So they decorated the room. They have hot dogs, and they got popcorn, and got a baseball theme. And so I'm in a room with 20, 30 or so mentally challenged adults, and they're asking any question in the world, and some are related to sports, some are related to baseball. Do you drive a motorcycle? Do you, so you had to be ready. And, they were just, and I did it a few times, and it was great. And I remember them. So it was just a great experience.
Oh my gosh.
So
How amazing, though, that, these communities have had access to you, your knowledge, your skills. Helping with youth sports, I know, both of you could talk a lot about this, how this is so necessary.
Yeah, I mean, here are these young kids, and there's a fantasy that they have,
Right.
and that's good. You have
Yeah.
to have dreams. And that's a positive. It's
Right.
a positive.
Right.
And they have to have role models. They have to have people that, this is what I went through, son. You know?
Right.
I there were hurdles along the way, but I kept going. I kept working at it, and it can't just be, well, that's it. I finished my pro career. I got injured. My life is done.
Right.
No,
Right.
no.
Right. Right.
What that does is set up possible other branches of your life, and that's what Dave's just talking about.
Right.
You know? Great. That part of it is kind of wrapping up. There's more to do.
Right.
There's
Right.
more to do.
Yeah,
They're
100%.
positive things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have, when I first started out, I was happy to have a job. Sometimes players have a major adjustment after sports where what are you going to do now? I mean, you're putting so much into a career that even maybe late in your career when it's not heading in the right direction to think that, ooh, now what am I going to do after? Because that's more of a negative thought. I'm not done yet, but you have to be prepared. And so when I got into the city of Rocky River, I was, I would drag the fields, I would do whatever, and I drove the Zamboni in the ice rink. Not a very good Zamboni driver, I'll tell you that. But it was fun. But then I ran the baseball camps. We do clinics, and you try to give the kids a lesson, and kids are good kids. They just need to be taught. They need to be, understand that you're not always going to have success. And, because you're a fifth and sixth grade all-star at whatever in Rocky River or any community, it doesn't mean you're going to play for St. Ignatius in a couple years.
Yeah.
You got to keep working and get better. There is a lot of good players out there. But sports in general, the competition, what the lessons that you learn are so invaluable. And, I highly recommend it. And, parents, stay in your lane, please.
It seems to be a theme on this show where we're
Right.
talking about how to parent through. But that's, I
Yes.
think any parent now needs this information more than ever. And I don't know why we're in an era where parents are living their dreams through their children. But
these
we
young
are.
kids that Dave's are talking about.
Yeah.
It just seems like this comes up so often. Those younger kids are just, come on, they're just sampling. They want to have fun. There's their buddies, and then here's a guy that played in the major leagues, and he's talking to you on your level.
Yeah.
He's not going, no, he's talking to our level and helping us get there, helping us have fun.
Yeah.
Now that I'm telling you, they may not remember their English teachers,
Right.
but they're
Right.
going to remember.
Yeah.
Oh, remember Coach Ford? He was a great
Yeah.
guy. That's
Right.
what they're going to remember,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
sets up a beautiful scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what's most important. And so when you see these kids, I mean, is there one piece of advice that you leave them with when you're working with some of the kids?
Yeah. So I do a lot of pitching lessons now. And the one thing that I tell them is, everybody thought, well, you got to have fun. You got to have fun. And, with sports. And I agree. But I had fun by doing well and competing and winning and doing that. And I wasn't out there to have fun, just like I was playing with my buddies somewhere, in a pickup game. But you do understand that this is not life or death here, that they're still going to go to school tomorrow. They're still going to be 10, 11, 12, whatever they are. Learn as much as you can. I'm working with pitchers, so be ready, be prepared in whatever you're going to do. And when it's over, it's over. Then learn from it and come back the next day and be stronger.
Yeah, Dave's talking about that there's that okay, kid, you had fun
Yeah.
playing with your buddies.
Yeah.
Now there's that next step.
Correct.
Mhm.
that
Correct.
You're investing time.
Mhm.
You're investing, maybe I get some lessons, and I
Right.
have to pay. There's that next level you go to. And,
Yeah.
Kid, look in the mirror. There's
Right,
certain things
right.
maybe you favor, or you're going, talent-wise, maybe this is where I belong.
Right.
And that takes a little time
Yes.
for the kid to get to that. And there's got to be people that would help in several ways, counsel them, but also just those, okay, let's take you to a little different level on technique.
Yeah.
And that's important too.
Right.
Right?
Right.
That's important.
Absolutely.
We're going to put you through what we like to call the vocab word and then the quote. It's like going right back to, what was her name? Your English teacher?
Mrs. McDonough.
Mrs. McDonough's
She'll be happy
class.
with
Yeah,
what
she
we do.
will
Okay.
be looking down on us.
Very good.
Happy with this last segment.
Okay.
We'll be right back. You are watching The Object of the Game. We have come to the point in the show where we basically go back to English class here. We pick out what we like to call the vocab word, where we have our guest, who is Dave Ford today, take a look at a list of attributes of what he may have learned in sports. The biggest lesson he could say, this is it. This is what I learned in sports. And then we wrap it up with a quote from literature. Sometimes it's Shakespeare, most of the time.
It is.
So far, it's all been Shakespeare.
Yes.
So, Dave, I know my dad just showed you like a whole list of words.
I was gonna do them yesterday.
He did. I had time to study.
That's right.
and so when he showed you that word, the list.
Yes.
When we talk about lessons in sports and what people can carry with them throughout their lives, and like I told you off camera or when we weren't recording, like I have kids who are playing sports now, and I'm like, I will pay the fees. I will take you to these lessons if you're learning these elements of being a human. What is it that stands out to you?
Well, there was two, but the determination. I think you have to be resilient, but you have to be determined to whatever the task is, whatever the sport is. It doesn't have to be a sport. It could be school, it could be academics. You have to be driven. You have to be determined to want to accomplish that. And with the understanding of that at times you might not succeed, but what are you going to do then? You know, when things don't work out for you. And that happened a lot in the minor leagues, because how often, you know, playing in high school ball did I have failure? You know, I did really well. But then when you're a pitcher and then you start to get hit, and like you'd never been hit before, you're going, whoa, this is a wake-up call. So you have to be determined. You got to be able to bounce back and handle adversity and go at it again. You know, that's life.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Determination. You know, you example is a great example. Dave is, and you can see this in sports a lot of times, because you know the ball is going to bounce funny in basketball and football and so on, and that can't take the life out of you. It can't. There's that. Okay. But there's a game tomorrow.
Yeah, there is a game. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, there's a game tomorrow.
That's right. That's
Thank
right.
God there's a game next week. You're a football player.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you can't. There's that. Okay, you're allowed to feel kind of bad for a day or something.
Right.
But no,
Right.
I have a goal. I'm going to go get the goal.
Right.
And that's you can't get much done in this world without that.
That's right. And if you're a starting pitcher and you start to string together a few bad outings and they're every 5 days and now you've had 3 in a row, you're starting to put together a bad month. So that's a really that'll test your determination and drive and everything.
Well,
but
the mental game too.
Correct.
I mean, our last episode was with a sports psychologist talking about the mental game, and I'm helping my 11-year-old through, you know, like shake it off. You got to go get the next ball.
Yes.
And how much of it is the mental game? So when you need determination, I like what you're saying about, you know.
Well, and children today think about what children have been faced with in the last 5, 6, 7 years. I mean, you had COVID, so you had that loss of interaction in addition to what's happening in the schools. So they're bombarded with things that we didn't deal with when we were young guys coming up playing whatever. It's a lot. So as parents, my advice would be you got to listen and talk to your kids a lot and be hands-on and just let them talk if you can get them talking. Yeah. And which is really key. And you know, it's really challenging for parents nowadays. I can see it.
You have a quote.
Sure.
All right.
Okay, I taught Shakespeare for
I'm
years.
ready.
Okay. She says, well, maybe it's Shakespeare. All right.
Well, I like these Shakespeare quotes.
Right. Well,
I mean,
you know,
a lot of people that struggle
I've
understanding
said this before, right?
Shakespeare.
If somebody quotes Shakespeare, that people go, "Oh, he's a pretty intelligent guy." Yeah. I used to make kids write them because they got homework or there's write it 50 times. Anyway, I'm thinking of a baseball. Here he is, a baseball pitcher, especially a pitcher, right? Mm-hmm. And this is from the play Henry IV, Part 1. It was a history play again. I think I had one before by a very famous character, Falstaff. I'm not going to go into discussing, but he was pretty famous character that Shakespeare created. So much so that in the play Henry V, Shakespeare killed him right away. Falstaff's dead. All right, too bad. Bye. I mean, really, just because people were getting weird. Anyway, here's the pitcher, and you're on the mound, right? You had a fastball.
Yeah.
And you wanted to always, when times were rough, you always wanted to go with that fastball, didn't you?
Right.
But you had to think, didn't you? You couldn't always just do that.
Right.
So this quote is simply this: the better part of valor is discretion. Okay, I'm going to throw this right by the guy. I don't care, right? But he's probably waiting for that fastball, too.
Mm-hmm.
I got to think this through. You could throw it 99 miles an hour, but if he's expecting 99 miles an hour, you got a problem.
Right. Oh, for sure.
You had to keep him off balance.
Oh, yes,
so
absolutely.
A pitcher couldn't just muscle the game.
Right.
I mean, here I'm talking about pitching. What am I talking about? Pitching?
Oh, yeah, but you're spot on. Yeah, you are.
I'm going to win this ball game, right?
No, you are right.
I better think this through now.
Yeah.
I better go back to the game plan on this batter,
Right.
Because you'd have to sit there and they'd have to go over with you, right?
Oh, you analyzed every hitter.
Every hitter.
Every hitter.
People think the pitcher just sits there and waits for the next game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So there you go. Dave.
Last inning, you threw this, you threw that.
Oh, for sure.
You had to
Yeah, you as a pitcher, your mind. Mine was, at least, try to be like a computer to remember what I did to you last time, what was the quality of that pitch, what you hit, how hard you hit it, where did you hit it, how did you react. So those are all things you're processing quickly because, you want to be out there for a while.
Yeah. Little did you know there was a Shakespeare quote.
Right.
No, yeah.
That
This
was
is,
meant.
That's a pretty famous one.
Yes.
This is not what I expected here today, Chuck.
Right. Not how you expected to wrap up the show. Dave, it's been so great sitting here
thank you for
hearing
having
these
me.
stories.
This is awesome.
This was so
Yes.
great for anybody
Very
who
nice.
loves, especially baseball history, Cleveland baseball history, any sort of history. It was great to hear your perspective.
Very enjoyable. Thank you for having me.
And these two, you might see them out to dinner all the time,
Yeah.
especially in
Yes.
Little Italy.
Yeah.
That seems to be their spots.
Right.
Yes.
Well, we like it. So.
Well, for Chuck Kyle, I'm Maureen Kyle. Thank you so much for watching The Object of the Game. If you want to see more episodes, we have them all on the Big Play app. It's free. All you have to do is download it, Big Play Sports Networks, and you can watch all the shows there. We are also on all sorts of social media pages. You can watch us live on X, which you might know as Twitter, and also the Big Play Sports Network YouTube page. We'll see you back here for the next episode.